here we are with Deb Heiser, who, by the way, is a badass. All of you, her website and everything is going to be in our description and everything. But she has done so much for so many people. She's written books. She's been published. She's all over the place, which for me is terrifying because writing a book scares me. But without further ado, we're going to introduce her on, and really what we're going to focus on is her journey. And for those listening, of how you can be a part of that journey or change where you're at in your journey. So, Deborah, without further ado, the floor is yours. Talk us through kind of where you started, what you got going on, and then we're going to go all the way back to the beginning.
Well, thank you for having me on. Let's see. I mean, it started from being a kid, really, and having a grandfather who was a mentor, who I didn't even realize was my mentor. It has been a very, I guess, almost the squiggliest line in terms of journeys. Nothing was ever a straight line for me. I'm originally from Iowa, and moved out to New York as a kid with my family. And really, the journey started with me when I was in my teens and visiting my grandmother in Florida. And she wasn't herself. Usually, she was the super fun grandma who everyone would visit, and no one took luggage because she had the cutest clothes in her closet. And so we'd all just bring shoes and then wear all of her clothes and go out and have a great time. And on one visit, I went down there and she wasn't herself. She was grouchy and irritable and even like disheveled. It was not her. Like the cool, fun, really classy lady wasn't there anymore. And I said to the person at the assisted living facility, "What's wrong with grandma?" And they said, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to fix her." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "She's depressed." And I didn't even know what depression was. I had no idea what that meant. And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, she has an illness, the medication and everything she's taking, it's making her depressed. She's going to be okay the next time you visit." Well, they were right. In a couple of months, I went down to visit and she was back to herself. In fact, she had a boyfriend named Wilbur. And so, like, she was like even better than before. So I decided I wanted to fix grandmas from that point. I went back to college, changed my degree, became a psychologist, and decided that I was going to focus on aging and on grandmas. And that's really where my whole journey started, was deciding that I wanted to start to study older adults and how they operate and what makes them tick, because my grandmother suffered from depression. And from there, I started to study every single thing no one ever wants to have or get, like depression, frailty. I thought that's what getting old was, that you had, Alzheimer's disease, all these things that when we think of aging scares us. So I'm doing all this work and I'm thinking I'm really amazing. I wrote my first book on like how to navigate the end of life with when you're in palliative care. Like, I mean, seriously, these are conversation busters at any cocktail party. No one wants to be around you. You are not the fun person in the room. And I went to a party one night and it was at dinner, and I couldn't wait to tell everybody all the amazing work I was doing. And they got to me and I told them what I was doing, and it went flat. Nobody, said anything positive. No one said anything. And so this guy across from me said, "So what do you have to look forward to when you age?" And I didn't know. I had no answer for him. So I was absolutely stunned and kind of embarrassed. Here I went and thinking I'm doing all this amazing work in depression and frailty and all of that stuff. And a guy tells me, all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid on life and that we have nothing to look forward to. So I went back to the drawing board and started to look at everything that we could possibly have to look forward to. And that's where the next part of my journey started. Was I went back and realized that we do have things to look forward to, that we focus on all of the negative things, the physical trajectory that we have, which is where, we have a steep incline in our abilities when we're young, where we walk and talk and run fast and do all of those things. And then we have a slow, steady decline from our 20s on to the rest of our lives. And that's what scares people. What no one talks about, but that had been studied for a long time, more than 75 years, is our emotional trajectory. And that shows that we start at the same place at birth and we go all the way up to the end of life, and we're happier as we get older. Doesn't matter if you can't run fast or you wear reading glasses or you're wrinkly, you're happier. And you also become more satisfied with your life and you have meaningful connections. You have all these awesome things that no one ever talked about. So I decided to start looking at that and figuring out why in midlife we make this giant pivot to become happier. And that's where I ended up with the Mentor Project, because mentoring is what we do in midlife. Mentoring, volunteering, and philanthropy are all part of what's called generativity. It's an emotional developmental stage we hit where we want to give a piece of ourselves to others without expecting anything in return. And anybody who has a kid knows that when the baby's up at 3 a.m., they're not giving anything back to us, but we want to care for them. We're not like, hey, go make me a sandwich. We know that they are just, that we want to care for them no matter what. And that's exactly how we feel in midlife about people we're not even related to. And it's because we're taking a piece of ourselves, our knowledge, maybe it's a value or culture, something, and putting it inside of that other person to live on. And it makes us feel immortal. And that was like, I was like, wow, I found the Holy Grail. And that's where we found that starting the Mentor Project was a way to look at, does this really happen in real life? Are these theories actually true? And it turns out they are, because we started with just a couple of people, top people in their fields, to mentor students around the world. And when we had 10 people, we thought, well, this is it. There isn't going to be anything else we're ever going to do. And then it turned out COVID hit, and we went from 10 to 60 to 80 to more than 100 mentors. And we're talking like astronauts, Nobel nominees, really high level individuals who've changed the world. And people said, no way anybody's ever going to want to do that. They're too important. They're too valuable. They're too everything to really want to give away their time for free. And just this year, we're at year number 5, we've given away about $3 million in mentoring hours for free to students around the world in about 5 countries outside the US. And we're still going, we're still moving. This phenomenon and the trajectory that we can all look forward to is one where you feel great connectedness. You feel like you're a part of the world. You're not just living in a tiny bubble checking boxes to get to the next level. It's actually one of the most powerful things, midlife and beyond, because you really get to feel like you are making a difference in the world, like you did something, your footprint is there. And the Mentor Project is really showing how that works with all the mentors who are out there giving.
Such an important topic, and you hit upon about 300 things that we'll get back to. Don't worry, folks, we're going to hit them. Um, is you discussed obviously COVID was going to be something that exponentially grew that because we're all sitting at home. I talk about in my industry a lot is our industry grew significantly and has changed because of the pandemic in itself. I believe, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, right? Is I believe our society as a global society has changed drastically to trying to be individualistic, trying to live in our own lanes within our own communities. And since we're integrated everywhere anyway, went through this time period of like didn't know what to do. I think then the pandemic brought us all closer together. And what I'm finding in my own industry is people are just wanting to connect with people
Yeah.
as a bigger community, right? Outside of who's their next door neighbor. A lot of people actually have better connections with people across the globe than they do their
Yeah.
next door neighbor. And that is simply because we understand now as a society that like I can connect with people who I want to connect with, not just because they are next door, not because they're my family or I went to school with them or they're on my sports team. And I think that's really important to see and to see that change and shift in our industry, which means you have to have that mentorship. You have to have
Yeah.
these people to help you because it's something that our society has not really ever gone through before.
You're 100% right. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, along a few years before COVID hit, podcasts weren't as big as they are now. And podcasting is really a form of modern mentorship. When mentorship was first talked about, it didn't include technology that we have today. But even though you may not know every one of the people who are listening, there's a connection that they may feel when they're getting the information that you're giving. We are now connected in a newer, bigger, broader way than ever before. And some of my mentors I have not met in person, but I feel so connected and close with them. And they're changing lives in other countries, and they may not have met their mentees. In many cases, they do, but in some, they don't. And that doesn't matter. And what you brought up brings me to a developmental milestone that we all reach in our like 30s or so, 30s to 40s. And all of these are, they can move. You can do it earlier or later. It's kind of like walking when you're a baby. It could be 6 months or 16 months. It's all good.
Right.
But we're supposed to, when we're young, figure out who we are. And when we're in that identity stage, we're taking in all kinds of connections, people that don't matter that much to us, and people that we're just saying, I'm going to try this hat on. Is this somebody I like hanging out with? And then we get a little too busy. We're working. Maybe we have a significant other. Maybe we're starting a family. And we're starting to really know who we want to spend our time with. And we slough off those connections that aren't as meaningful. And we keep a smaller crowd that matters to us. It can just be a few, but those are the people that we're going to call when we're in need and all of that stuff. And then we start to only take on new people that matter. So the people we take on could be a person that's in a whole different country. It could be somebody that's near us, but we did not have that possibility in that same broad way to do that before really the pandemic, because we were relying on the people in our office, the people that we went and we saw every day. We didn't connect as much with people around the world. So our opportunities to connect meaningfully, even if it's through technology, is expanding. And that makes it so that we can really engage in mentoring and other aspects that really help us develop in a much more meaningful way. And I can tell you our company boomed because of that. It made it, really, it went up 80% in a couple of months because of that.
Do you find you're a psychologist, right? You're the doc. You've done all the studying and all the things that I don't want to do. Um, Everyone always talks about how having a relationship is better in person, right? We've been taught that forever. They teach it in sales, everything. It's always like, always go face to face. Are we at a point where face to face is through technology, or is face to face still and will always be the king of those relationships?
I would say face to face is the king of all of those relationships. But if you have a family member who's far away, are you going to say, you know what, I'm not going to get on the phone with them. I'm not going to Zoom with them. In person is what I want. We take what we can have that's the best of what we can have. So if I am meeting with somebody and the only way I can meet with them, professionally is over Zoom, I'm going to take that because it's better than not meeting. There was a study done in the 90s, maybe actually not the 90s, the early 2000s, where it was looking at telemedicine before telemedicine became telemedicine. And it was up in Washington Heights in New York City. And they had someone going into apartments where people and hooking up a TV. A lot of the people didn't even have a TV and access to the internet. And this was before everybody had the internet all over the place the way we have it now. And a lot of these people were kind of homebound because they couldn't get out of their apartments very easily. They were walk-ups. Well, in that case, we were able to see that this was very helpful for people who would not have seen anybody at all to get some kind of care, and to get some kind of psychological treatment over what was Skype then. And so what we know is that Is it optimal? Is that what we should shoot for? No. But we should take that in every instance when we don't have another option. And so that can make a huge difference for us in terms of our relationships that we currently have. If I'm talking to you right here and right now, I can feel connected to you. At some point, if you are my relative or a significant other, I'm going to want to be near you in person. That is going to make a big difference. But the way that we can connect and communicate now, we can get a lot of that online, and we didn't have that at all just 20 years ago.
So let's talk about, all right, so you had that going on with your grandma when you were younger, and you decided to kind of focus and shift. What emotions were you going through, obviously with your grandma, but into that shift of, hey, you know what? I want to figure out what goes on when you get older. What was that emotional tie to that?
The emotional tie was that I loved my grandmother. She was like everything to me. I visited her all the time, as often as I could. I was the oldest grandchild. She was somebody who I really looked up to. So to me, it felt like I had to help fix grandmas. Grandmas were the most important thing to me. I know that other people understand that, and some people who don't have a grandmother who's so involved in their life may not. But this was like a mom, in the sense that this was somebody who I really, really cared about. And the thought of losing her, or having her not in the same place that she was, where she couldn't give back to me in the same way because she was depressed, it made me feel like I had a fire lit in my belly that said, you must go do this. I didn't even know what a psychologist was at that time. I'm first gen going to college, so I didn't know what my options were. And so when this person said I could be a grandma fixer, I was like, well, sign me up. So I literally had been putzing around, not getting my degree in a quick manner. And I went in and finished like this. And then I got like a job. And then I started graduate school. I finished graduate school in like record time. And it's because I had this mission that I thought was so important to to solve this problem. Like, how many other people had grandmas that had problems, and that, they weren't able to live their whole life. The fact that I saw that in fact she got better made me think, if everybody could have that, imagine that. So that was really the big impetus that led me, and where that real power came from, that did not diminish in time. It wasn't like I went home and was like, oh well, I'll go back to my life. It sort of propelled and ruled me until I got out there doing the work I was doing.
Now let's be real. It wasn't like that triggered you and then everything lined up and everything's been perfect your entire life.
Oh no.
Walk us through some of like the down times, the times where you're like
Okay.
the only thing getting you through was the passion.
All right. I'll walk you through it because it's ugly in parts of it. So I went back home and I decided, okay, I'm going to switch my major again. So I switched my major in college, and I'm like working. I worked my way through college, and so I'm like tired. I was up from 10 o'clock until 2 doing my schoolwork and working during the day. I had like long days. It was sucky, like sucky. Like, I remember eating chicken nuggets at like 11 o'clock at night and being like, I don't know what this feeling is right here. And I went to the doctor and I'm like, that's heartburn from eating chicken nuggets every night. Like it was like I was not living like a golden life. And I went in one day and my professor was like, she ended up becoming a big mentor for me. She said to me, you got to figure your life out. You're doing okay in school and you don't even have like a great career that you're doing. And you're eating chicken nuggets, as your meal because you don't have time to even cook for yourself. Do like, give something up. Is it school? Just stop. Like, don't do everything partial. Do one thing all the way. And at that moment, I had been making excuses like, oh yeah, I'm so busy. And oh, just kind of feeling sorry for myself a little bit. And she really sort of slapped me around emotionally and made me realize that I can't live on that. So I really made my time devoted to school until I got done, and really worked hard at it. I got myself a really good job out of college. And then I worked there for about 5 years and worked from the very bottom up to a higher level. And I was working till like 11 o'clock at night. Again, like working hours. I was like, if I put all this time and energy into this, I am going to make sure that I do as well as I can. I worked at a psych hospital, so it's not like that was a glamorous place to be. I was, working in a place where I was really like, I'm going to learn research, and it wasn't like I had a background in this and or anybody who was telling me how to do this stuff. I was like, I'm going to learn it. And then when I applied to graduate school, I didn't have anybody telling me what to do. I was like, oh, okay, so I'll fill out some applications. I have to study for some exam. Oh, okay, I'll go do that. I didn't even know to study for long. I didn't know to get the book. It was all really just put together. I only applied to a couple of colleges for graduate programs because I didn't know you're supposed to maybe apply to a lot of them, and it was expensive. And so I ended up getting into 3 out of the 4 colleges that I applied to. And then I found out it was unbelievably expensive. And when I talk about expensive, I'm paying my own way and I'm a person eating chicken nuggets, like all the time. And I'm hearing it's 60 grand a year. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had 2 schools talking back and forth, and I went to the one that gave me money. And that was how I chose my school. And I went there and I said, I better finish fast because although they ended up giving me money, I couldn't live forever like that. It wasn't an easy experience, but I loved it. Um, but I will say that for anybody who wants to try something, you have to just, it's jumping through hoops. I kept telling myself it's one more hoop. I just have to get through this hoop. And after every hoop, I would reward myself and try to take a look back at what I had gone through and say, it's only a little bit farther, just a little farther, and try to look back and then look forward. And that's hard to do when you're in graduate school. A lot of the people there that, of course, they're going to graduate school. Everyone else in their family went to graduate school. They all have, had apartments paid for by their parents. They all had, they weren't like, I wonder if I'm going to, be able to pay my car insurance. These kinds of things that, if you're in that position, you have to just put your head down and say, one more hoop, and get through it. And that's what I did. So it wasn't a pretty journey. I did not ever want to stop, but I also didn't get to go on trips when everybody else was on their vacation breaks. I was doing temporary work at places to get through. But if I look back, those were some of my most exciting times because it was all about me. There was nobody else I was thinking about at that time, even though it was hard. Um, and then when I started research, they didn't even have an office for me. I sat on a couch with my computer, and it wasn't until my research made a big difference. I found that they were not identifying depression in nursing homes appropriately. So my work won an award, and it made nursing homes in the United States change how they assess for depression. So I'm sitting on a couch in a nursing home doing all of my work. I didn't even have an office, and I finally got an office in an old abandoned residence room. And that's where my office was. And I was thrilled at that point. But that was my journey to get to research where I started everything. And so it was not glamorous. That's all I'll say.
Do you remember what you did to celebrate you getting an office?
Yes. So when I got my office, it was again an abandoned resident room. And I went out and I actually got residents who were drawing pictures on cardboard boxes, like they would have Depends boxes that would come in, and I would get them markers and they would draw art on it. And I hung it all over my office. And I felt like I was in the museum. But that was really how I celebrated, was I like finally got to decorate something and put stuff up on the walls. And I still remember how much that made me feel like, I was some kind of fancy executive or something.
Right? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Talk me through being like the business owner side of things, right? Running and operating a business. What are some common themes that you've noticed over your career path that most people either could learn from you or have like maybe they have to go to the school of hard knocks just because that's what we all have to do in business?
The thing that I did not know about, but I was sort of intuitively doing it because I didn't know anything. I asked everybody for help. Everyone. Like, it didn't matter who you were. I was asking you for help because I thought everybody knows more than me. And I still do that to this day. That's the biggest thing that gets me to every new level, is by saying, can you help me? And can you teach me? And, what should I do next? That's truly the entire process, was asking people along the way. I still do that to this day. There's no reason a psychologist should be a CEO running an organization that is all top, 1% of their fields. Like, why is that? I get help from people all the time, and I'll say, if somebody gives me feedback, I take it. I don't say, "Oh, you must know less than me." No, I figure you must know more than me. And so I take everybody's advice.
That's a common theme we talk about on the podcast and in my business as well. Is one, not one person on this world has all of their shit together. They're all continuing to learn and develop. And then two, specifically on your wealth journey, but in life, you have to have a team.
Yeah.
Whatever that team may look like, you can't do it alone. There's not one person on this earth that has done it alone. And so it's very important to find those people. And honestly, I've learned working with the top one percenters and in mentoring that or getting mentor from them and just reaching out, is the simple fact of most good and great people want to help others. Like, that is in their heart. It is what they fundamentally want to do, and they are willing to help you. The only caveat is they want you to take what they've taught you and like implement it too to help
Yes.
others. And that's the important piece. If you're just going to take the knowledge and do something selfish, you probably won't have them as a mentor very much longer. So that's what I want to tell everyone: is reach out, figure it out, and don't be scared of it, because those awesome people truly want to help others. And that's epitome of exactly what you and your team does every day.
That's what you explained it 100% perfectly. That's the key essence of what's called generativity, that stage that we reach in midlife, where you want to give back. But if somebody's not going to catch that knowledge that you're dropping down, then they're never going to have anything to do with you. That's what mentorship is. It has to be somebody that's giving and somebody that's taking. And so that fundamental is the one key thing that has not only gotten the mentor project to where it is, but it's, when you look at every tech boom, every tech thing that's ever happened, the founding of our country, those were all mentors. They were all people with different areas of expertise who came together, and they were like, I don't know banking. Oh, I don't know this. And they all came together and they formed our country. Then the tech revolution happened. That was not a guy. That was people who worked together with, hardware engineer and a software engineer and this kind of coding and all these different things. But somebody had to say, I'm going to help you. And somebody had to say, okay, I'll take it. And those principles that you just described so beautifully are so true. It doesn't matter how high level you go. The person wants to give people things. They don't want to hoard it, because there's a form of immortality that you get when you give something to somebody and they do something with it. And when you see something propelled from your idea or your help, you feel just as good as if you did it yourself. And I know some people, when they're younger, might not be able to hear that as loud and clear. Like, I probably wouldn't have been able to at 30, but it
Yeah.
really is what happens and how it works.
What's the difference between mentorship and coaching?
If you're getting paid, you're not a mentor. if you're getting paid, you're a coach, you're an advisor, you're a sponsor, you're whatever else. You are not a mentor. A mentor has to want it from for intrinsic reasons. And the way I explain it is that imagine I say, hey, Stoy, would you like to go volunteer at a soup kitchen? And you say, yeah, sure. And then I say, okay, great. How do you feel about that afterwards? And you say, I feel great. I like it. I enjoy it. And I say, okay, Stoy, how about you go and you volunteer at Starbucks? You're giving out food and beverage the same way you were to hungry, thirsty people. You're not going to feel so good. The mentor is the person who's giving and feeling that from the intrinsic good place that they would do it for no pay at a soup kitchen. The coach is at Starbucks. That's the difference.
Thank you for that, because that's the important piece. I think a lot of people get mixed up with those that are looking out there, end up hiring a coach, regardless if they fit them or not. They just get sold on this idea of whatever they're talking about. And literally, that is it. They got sold on, and that is not mentorship. Those true mentors are not the ones, they're the ones that you text randomly at night
Yeah,
and you walk through things, and they're not charging you anything.
exactly.
How, from a business owner perspective, most all business owners in the service industry, this is, but in general, have that the good ones anyways have that problem. They have this balance thing that they're trying to figure out, right? They do, have a service or a product that they make money on that does help people, but also they want to be able to help and give back and mentor, etc. How do you explain or help those that are battling that right now kind of balance the differences there?
So a lot of people do want to give back and they don't know where or how. And so that was what happened with the mentor project. There were all these people who said, I'm leaving where I'm working. I'm really successful, but I'm not around other people. I kind of like work on my own or I have my own little clique. Sorry, I have a cold.
It's that damn cold.
I
Not
know.
over yet.
It's the season. So what I tell people is to look to your left and look to your right. You are looking at a mentor. Stoy, you have different areas, sorry, of expertise than me. And you're going to be able to tell me things that I don't know. Give me advice and vice versa. You can also find within your organization that you have founded people of different levels and who seem very far away from you. Connect with them. Find out what they're good at, what they believe in, what they like, and you are going to learn something from them. If you're looking to expand your business and grow it higher, and that's what you want mentorship in, you should be going out to organizations. You should be networking. Networking is one of the biggest places. Join a networking organization because you can change a person who's in your networking organization from a network introduction to a mentor very quickly. So it's looking around and saying, I need help, and then asking people for it. Too many people feel a sense of pride. I don't want anybody to know I'm vulnerable. I don't want anybody to know I don't know everything. And that's the biggest thing that is a roadblock for people in the end, because you can't get farther if you don't know everything.
Couldn't say it better myself. Um, as we wrap this up, uh, new to this year is we always usually ask, what's one thing you want to leave the audience? Um, I want to flip that a little bit. What is one thing this year that you are wanting from others as you go through your journey, specifically this year in 2025?
What I hope in 2025 is that everyone will look to their left and look to their right and find a mentor and a mentee. Not only look for yourself to get more information, but who can you give information to? Make this the year of giving and the year of connecting. And if you'd like to learn more about that, I wrote The Mentorship Edge, and there are all kinds of insights into how you can do that.
And that's how we end it too, is always, please reach out, comment, DM us, email us. And I don't say it for the algorithm. I really don't care about it. What I care about is you. You, in order to take that next step, you got to reach out to somebody. And we are literally telling you from this podcast, we are here for you, right? Whether we can help you personally or at least we can connect you to someone. But this is the year of giving. So reach out so that way we can give as much as we can to you. Deborah, I appreciate you. I know you're battling a cold and everything. It's fine. Sound great. I am so happy to have you on, and I look forward to what this year can give for others, but also what we can do for others as we go.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities, or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.